Hello there, Tyrant here, and I just finished watching the latest episode of The Good Doctor, and once again, another well executed episode. So it starts off with just a regular morning routine, and Sean's not roommate, but neighbor, comes in venting about a situation that she had with the landlord. No, that leads to Sean losing his breakfast apple, and that ends up with him going to the market probably nearby and grabbing himself a new apple. And that goes way out of proportion. There's a shooting incident, person gets hurt, and yeah, that kind of leads into this entire episode because there's a lot in this episode, and um, when you when you break it down, it's a lot of people. Well, it's really like a part thing. It's three things if you take it right. You can get little snippets of everyone else, but I see it as the Sean storyline. Uh, Dr. Brown, I think that's. Wait, I gotta remember her name. And then you have. Shoot, what's the older guy, the president's name? Anyways, you get a little bit of him actually. Um, if you like dive deep, you get a lot of other characters who start to recognize a couple more things, and I like that. But when you just break it down to those three, I feel that it's those are the most momentous parts of this episode. Let's go with Dr. Brown first because her storyline's more obvious. Um, so the two patients that come in after the shooting are the girl that was in there who gets shot, and then the shooter himself who got knocked out by the storekeep. So she has to deal with taking care of this storekeep who turns out to be a Nazi, and she lets it emotionally affect her. And not only that, she has she conflicts with the other lead doctor at the moment, and that leads to a whole another layer of morality. And when I was going to school, and I went to, and there was separate classes for nurses, they had way so many classes that needed to do with not only with medical stuff but with also morality and stuff like that to be able to properly do this. So this episode in itself showcases that they'll still do their job no matter what because that's what they're there to do. But even though that's what she needed, because after that lost an episode of that's episode of 2 ago of that patient she accidentally, or she didn't kill, but she misstepped, and it led that she needed something to pick her up again, and it had to be this. She needed something, but it is something, and she stepped forward. Not only did she overbound her, she stepped overbound by disrespecting her lead. She just wasn't having it, and when she came back at the end and fully admitted it, it's one of those things you have to just admit to yourself what happened, and it'll just make you a better person. I'm gonna go with the president's little storyline here because it even though it's not as big and it's in pieces, you can still see um, you can still see how he's trying to help Sean, but we now understand a little bit more why he does it. So from this point, that we're at right now, 13 years ago, it seems like he lost his daughter to an event that we will probably find out a little later, and it seems that he's kind of guilt ridden to a point of this, and uh, what's gonna happen from here we don't know. It's just we have more of an idea of of why he's kind of really focused on Sean, trying to be there for him, and It's interesting to note that because he kind of feels a little bit bad because of this whole shooting situation and how Sean feeling. So it's very understandable. So now we gotta just foresee uh, what's going to be happening moving forward with that, and we'll learn more about him. But now we have an idea of why he does what he does and why he's helping Sean. You know, he does care about him, but now we have an underlying reason. Next is Sean's storyline. So this is what I found interesting about him, because this show showcases what he's processing and what may happen, because everyone's different. Remember that. So not everyone's gonna react the same way as they depict Sean in this show. So in this one, he's still quite focused on his task, but he does let it towards the end. Uh, um, I'm gonna say edge his thinking. That almost caused a misstep of his own. But he was able to. Melendez was able to kind of see this, because he actually had a talk with the president about it, because there was a scene where Sean was actually doing really well. He was performing like he normally does, and all that, and Melendez thought, he's okay, he's good, he does his work. But when that incident happens, when she was going critical, that's when he took a second thought and decided, he's not right. He needs. We have to go with the second option, and that kind of leads to the girl being saved, with Sean's help, with a little redemption toward the end. But he was wrong in the beginning. But it does lead that, because throughout the episode, everyone keeps telling him that it was his fault. A couple of people keep telling him it's his fault for the incident, and in a way, it's all reactionary. So when that whole shooting situation happened, that could have been dealt better, but with what happened there, it's understandable. But to Sean, he was thinking of it logically, and it makes perfect sense as that goes. But I'm glad what happens is, like, so it begins with the show opens up with this whole routine and him with his neighbor, she venting and everything, but it ends with them at the other, kind of him apologizing to her and all that, and them actually having a moment. And I'm glad. For a moment I thought that the neighbor character was gonna be just one of those one note characters that just shows up and does things, but I'm glad that she's there, because I will feel that she's like the outside anchor of normality, I would say, for Sean. Not only that, but to her as well, because Sean's, as she said, he's the only person that will honestly be honest with her brutally. So, and then toward at the end, he was willing to open up to her and let it, what happened. And that scene in itself, that scene felt just right, because it just encapsulates this episode of him suffering and not really thinking that he's suffering, that it's his fault, but then also revealing to himself that things could have been better. So that's kind of it for this episode. There's a lot in this episode to think about. So yeah, so I can't wait for next week. I wonder how many more episodes there are for this show. Those are my thoughts for this episode of The Good Doctor. So thanks again for watching. Until next time.